As a result of active human activity is already taking place in the nature of irreversible processes. Burning on planet Earth of fossil fuels and wood reaches 6 billion tons per year. The main contribution to atmospheric pollution make car exhaust emissions from thermal power plants in the second place, the chemical industry in the third. According to the Russian Academy of Sciences, daily from environmental pollution in the world dies around 8,000 people. Environmental factors such as air and water pollution are the cause of 23% of all deaths in the world. Most acute environmental degradation felt by developing countries, thus environmental deaths, reaches 25% in the developed countries. This figure does not exceed 17%. According to the World Health Organization, emissions of carbon dioxide, the main culprit of global warming on the planet, has increased by 10 to 14% in many countries compared to 1990. Every year burns about 1 billion tons of equivalent fuel, emits tens of millions of tons of nitrogen oxides and sulfur, some of them back in the form of acid rain, leading to death of living organisms. More than 400 million tons of soot, ash. The biosphere is contaminated by various persistent organic compounds, pesticides, etc., heavy metals, lead, mercury, etc., radioactive waste. More than 100 cities in Russia. The level of air pollution exceeds the permissible limits is 10 times or more. Dramatically reduced the forest, and it's the lungs of the planet. The area of tropical forest in Africa decreased by 70%, South America 60%, and deforestation entailed the loss of their rich flora and fauna. Climate change, soil and water exchange, annually loses forest area on the territory of Austria, which is equal to 84 square kilometers. Forest provides living conditions for many animals and humans. It is estimated that in 1 year hectares of forest produces at least 5 tons of oxygen. The forest area in the world for the XXth century has decreased by 1/3. Thus in Africa, disappeared more than 1/2, minus 2/5 in Asia, and in Latin America, about 1/3 of the forests of the original area. In recent decades, the world has lost 1/5 of arable land due to soil erosion. This area, which is equal to India and China, mankind uses more resources than the planet of their place. Mathematically speaking, is not long. Environmentalists call on the leaders of the earth to take appropriate measures to save humanity. Oil production has been steadily declining in Russia, in commercial costs as depletion of deposits are growing. Therefore, economic growth rates in Russia are reduced even under conditions of rising world oil prices. Following the growth of world population, but lack of food and the rapid depletion of natural resources, abrupt climate change, the first time in 70 million years, to be approaching a catastrophe. Elite insane plans of resettlement projects to Mars, as well as the construction of similar hydro and nuclear power, which led to the destruction of nature and the natural environment to restore it. Throwing huge amounts of money to the wind in the habit. Alien is not a pity. In the first part of the movie, Energy Received in the Future, I described in detail his invention, Botchkareva HPP, which is able to slow down the environmental catastrophe. The world is full of seas, rivers, reservoirs, canyons, gorges, which can run my HPP, giving electrical and kinetic energy from inexhaustible gravity of the planet. The idea is simple, to raise water to a height, as did the ancient masters, and use a lot of water to drive the rotation of the AC generator through a gearbox or a CVT with turbine generators, similar to the principle of conventional hydroelectric power plants. The difference is that for the operation of my hydroelectric dam should not be built in a few days, as easy to construct units are not afraid of the water from the composite material and plastic film, and bind to bridges, dams, dikes, breakwaters. Units in the form of a conveyor belt Botchkareva with buckets of frames covered with plastic film and the unit with the framework operating as the blade of the flow or the airflow, as well covered with foil. River flow rotates the blades simultaneously. Rotate another unit, lifting buckets filled with water to a height of dams, bridges, houses, or above, where the water is poured into the trough and flows into the pockets of the third unit HPP Botchkareva. Conveyor belt with buckets filled with water under her weight. It rotates through the reducer alternator. The flow of water from the gutter can fall through the holes in the turbine blades of conventional generators at the same time by gravity through pipes to the consumer in the following cities: houses, cottages, for irrigation. Closed pipe with fences on floating objects. In the winter freeze is not a constant rotation and the local heating of the generator. Dam break does not make sense. Made the arch for navigation, following the fish stocks on the spawning grounds, but you can build a drawbridge for parking boats. Another shot in the direction of thieves. Kidnappers and subsoil thoughtlessly squander foreign synthesis gas. State of matter is hundreds of times lower than the cost of gasoline, methane, propane, butane, hydrogen, helium. But it is lighter than air. The new engine Botchkareva next film. But why it was necessary to rob me. The inventor Vladimir Botchkarev, May 5, 2016, City Volsky.